Arcades just have a certain allure to me. Maybe it's the child-approved gambling of ticket and claw machines. Maybe it's the bright pulsing neon lights that fill my vision as I walk into these dimly lit warehouses, darting and dancing through rows of cabinets as attract screens scream for my attention to give their game my credits. In short, arcades are sick. In theory, things have changed a lot over the 50+ years of arcade history. Games that used to cost a quarter or two are now funded by these credit card swipers that you load money onto, which leads to a lot of customer frustration. Games cost these weird numbers like 4.3 credits or 16.5 credits, and when you go to put money into a reloadable card, depending on what arcade you visit, the dollar to credit ratio always fluctuates, which gets pretty annoying. Couple that with almost every modern arcade turning into more of a youth gambling center and less of a one-of-a-kind immersive gaming experience, and you have a recipe for failure, which leads to every arcade, despite different branding and names, ultimately feeling pretty similar to each other, causing stagnation in the industry, which means people have justified reasons not to leave their house to, well, play some games. I believe these are just a few of the factors as to why the arcade scene in the West started dying. Hi, I'm your boy Josid, and I just want to yap about how important arcades are to me and the communities I'm involved in, and how arcades managed to revive themselves, overcoming a rapid decline in popularity over the last 2 decades. I was born in 2001, which means at my young age I had front row seats to watch the arcade industry slowly decline. When I was 8, every arcade I walked into had these tokens you could get in exchange for a quarter. You'd run around with a cup full of these, popping them into machines so you could play some games. The tactile feel of slamming a token down a machine as it rattles and clunks its way into the cabinet was always immensely satisfying, and the little jingle arcade games put out when a credit was received was the icing on the cake. It also just made for solid audio-visual feedback. You could line quarters up at fighting games to tell people you had next in line, and the gratification that came with putting one token into a time crisis machine as you proceed to fully clear it without dying is pretty darn cool. Double points if you cosplay and gunsling throughout the run. To me, the physical appearance of tokens also helped cut down on the amount of gambling kids did. Yes, I know, since the dawn of ticket machines, kids have always flocked to them for that juicy ticket payout that eventually let us get cheap prizes, or you stocked up for expensive items you could only dream of affording. I believe the visual of watching your cup of coins deplete, knowing darn well you could spend 4 tokens on a deluxe playthrough of Daytona USA with the homies, is exactly why I prefer the method of tokens over the digital credit card swipe future we stumbled into. Not only do you usually have an even token spend with no leftover credits, it's also easier to track just how much you're spending per game. Also, physical tickets. I miss feeding tickets into the munch machine so much. Not to mention, if you're a die-hard ticket game player, you can't even fully appreciate the satisfaction of a massive bonus payout. Here's my friend Kaya winning big on the Spider-Man coin pusher game, gaining a whopping 9,999 tickets, and it didn't fully cash out on the day we were there. We had to wait 12 to 24 hours for the digital tickets to fully count, which sucks. Like, sure, an hour or 2 wait is fine, but upwards to 12 to 24 is a little bit crazy. Also, what if you're a kid at a birthday party and you win big, but you gotta leave before all the tickets on your card are counted? That whole situation would just blow, and also, it removes the fun of aiming for the huge payout. And to my shock, from 2015 forward, almost every modern arcade turned into these glorified child gambling hubs, as locations like Dave & Buster are filled to the brim with ticket redemption machines and blown up mobile game cabs, which basically spelled the beginning of the end for the arcade industry in the West. And with barely any traditional games on the floor, the whole design of these blasted cards feels counterintuitive. So what about those so-called instant gratification machines? Well, we have standard claw machines. There's these American rigged models, y'all know, the tri-claw grabbers that shift power output depending on when the machine feels like paying out. There's also these Japanese style redemption machines, like the UFO catchers, which lean more towards skill-based prizes, but trust me, they still have a lot of luck involved. Those Japanese style crane minigames are often found at game centers like Round 1. They tend to offer a lot more diversity and chances to win for fairly cheap buy-ins. Heck, rumor says in Japanese-style game centers, if the game attendant sees you struggling with the crane game, they'll move the prize to make it basically easy for you to win. Not to be on my weeb stuff, but Japan has proven that their style of arcade is vastly superior to whatever the West has been peddling and chasing for most of the late 2000s and 2010s. Round 1s, which have been popping up all over the US, offer these Japanese-style UFO catchers with little tips slotted into the corner of each machine, so you have a better understanding of how to work them. Couple that with its anime prizes and plushes, and it's obvious curious why they've been dominating and low-key reviving the arcade scene. I mean, as of the making of this video, one just opened in Elizabeth, New Jersey, marking the second round one that's opening in this state, the other of which is in Deptford. And speaking of revivals, unlike most American arcades, round ones have a healthy balance between racing games, ticket games, claw machines, and most importantly to me, fighting games, something pretty much every modern arcade lacks. Honestly, my only hang up with round one is their lack of immersive style cabinets, something I'll touch on a bit more in a second. What they lack in that department, round one makes up for in its groove and rhythm game section, the apex of ridiculously fun arcade game design. They got it all. DDR, Dance Rush Stardom for my freestyle enjoyers, Beat Mania, the grand grandpa of the genre, French titles like Theater Rhythm, Wacko, and Sound Rush Voltix, you name it, chances are round one has it. Except Taiko. America has yet to get Taiko cabs. Hopefully that changes sometime soon with the first official US release of Taiko that rolled out in late 2024. So, round one is encroaching in the US territory with its robust mix of game offerings, usually clean locations, well-maintained cabs, and some round ones that have the space are even branching out into the amusement aspect with Spocha, where instead of laser tag and mini golf, they have batting cages and rolling rinks. The variety each round one location offers with its cabinets and prizes is exactly what I would like more out of traditional chain arcades, and it's no wonder why they've been opening shops left and right across the nation. To be fair, there are some American chain arcades that just get it and offer a healthy mix of cabinets and attractions. The best I've seen thus far is the Tilt arcade chain. Some locations go by Tilted 10, some go by Tilt Studios, and these locations usually offer some form of what I dub the immersive cab. I want you guys to take a look at the screen and observe how crazy some of these arcade cabs got in the late 90s and early 2000s. A 8-player linked Daytona USA cabinet with built-in webcams that projects player reactions to the patrons of the arcade, a functional Star Wars pod racer, heck, an OutRun 2 cab with double seats and controls for each person, and of course, my holy grail, a F-Zero Deluxe cab complete with full range motion. Cabinets like this used to be the norm for big chain amusement centers, and Tilt are so far the only big chain locations in the states that I've noticed who've taken the time to preserve and carry a select few now classic games. That OutRun 2 cab is from Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. This particular Tilt opened only 2 years ago, and they have active workers going around fixing cabs and cleaning them up, which is a big deal. I can attest that most of the Tilt locations operate very well and take good care of their older arcade machines from the ones I've visited thus far, those being in Indianapolis, Arizona, and the former NJ location in Voorhees before it closed. Every time I end up at a Tilt, I let out a sigh of relief, because someone in the West at least actually cares about making a mostly affordable, accessible arcade experience for people of all ages. And with that, there's two big examples of how the arcade industry is mounting a comeback for itself. But what about established brands? You know, your Dave & Buster's, the main events. These are not arcades, they're glorified daycares. I mean, look at one walkthrough of a Dave & Buster's or main event and all the usual culprits are there. One shooting game that's usually something you see often, like a Raw Thrills or Halo cab. They got that new Mario Kart DX because it's Nintendo, and then a bunch of ticket and mobile machines I can't even be bothered to list. When I talk about how arcades decline, spaces like this are why. Main events and Dave & Buster's offer little in-game variety aside from fast-tracking peeps to the ticket games and mobile redemption machines as quickly as possible. Before I move on, I have one last comment on Tilt in round one. Please don't mess up a good thing. Keep adding those weird Japanese import machines, and most importantly, keep uptaking those 2000s and 90s cabs at Tilt locations. Preserving and upkeeping these cabinets makes it feel like I'm walking into video game history, and I think generations like myself are very appreciative of that, seeing that it's very difficult to play these games at home. Rumor has it there's been an underground revolution of sorts, with an uptick of local or mom-and-pop arcades all across the country. The beauty of these spaces is that most tend to focus on properly adapting with the times. We have barcades which keep the token train alive. You put $1 in to get some tokens and head out to play some games. It's a proper adult arcade experience, meant to be a throwback. I personally enjoy them, and if you're lucky, you'll spot some classic niche titles around the venue, like the time I found a Lucky and Wild cab at this Phoenix, Arizona barcade. There's also retro game stores that have arcades attached. This one is pretty common. Lost Art Games in Greensboro, North Carolina has an arcade attachment called Arcadia Manor. They specialize in pinballs and a massively underrated genre of the arcade, shmups, with the whole top floor dedicated to them. The best part of this arcade is the payment method. All the cabinets here are set to free play, and you pay a select dollar amount by the hour instead of credits. So imagine paying $15 for the full day or $30 for the week, which is the pricing for Arcadia Manor as of the time of this video. A really dope spot I personally enjoy is Retroware in Glensdale, Pennsylvania, which is linked to Classic Games Junkie. They got a healthy mix of everything. Plus, I finally found an elusive Tycho cab, even if it's a bit outdated song-wise. The grail of this arcade is the 4-player linked Gundam Maxi Boost on 2 machines, and it has a spectating screen, a game that's immensely popular in the East but has struggled to catch on over here in the States. It's also a set of cabs that would do very well in most Round1 locations if Namco would stop playing around with the IP and drop it at R1. Lastly, in Arizona, there was the Gaming Zone in Tempe, yet another retro game store fused with an arcade that featured quite a few bangers. The highlight for me here was Street Fighter 3 Third Strike on a classic Sega Astro City cab. This is just perfect. Oh, and they have the first Rhythm Heaven, I guess. Since I'm in deep, I figure I might as well flex a couple arcades I've hit. Boss Battle Games, which is in Indianapolis. This is where I got to go play the 8-player Deluxe Daytona cab for the first time, along with an awesome F-Zero AX Motion cabinet, which is now my personal holy grail to acquire. The other quirky machine there that I found pretty attractive was the Sega Strike Fighter Tri-CRT monitor setup. It looks like something nuts. Like, it is crazy sitting down and being in it. I don't think I have footage of me playing it, but here's a picture. It's pretty dope, and I strongly recommend trying it if you ever stumble across it. The biggest outlier of all the arcades I visited is without a doubt Galloping Ghost in Illinois, which just so happens to be the largest arcade in America with over 900 cabinets in its inventory. I can't pick a favorite game from here, to be honest, but the experience is unmatched and a place that I'm definitely going to visit in the near future. All of the arcades mentioned use the pay-by-time system, as I talked about previously with Arcadia Manor, and they offer extremely reasonable prices, which I'd like to think helps these arcades laser focus on selecting cabinets that are unique and fun to play first over min-maxing which arcade machine is going to bring them the most money, or adding prize-like titles to cheapen the blow. While we may never hit the heights of the 90s arcade booms and innovations, it's at least evident to me that the arcades are on a steady pace to being a bit more profitable and sustainable to hang out at for the average consumer. As larger chains distance themselves from the generic mobile ticket games and redemption titles and start focusing more on unique experiences via importing cabs from Japan, whether they're rhythm games, VR attractions, or light guns but played with airsoft pellets, arcades have been doing a great job of bringing back experiences you just can't get at home or on the go. And I think that latter point is what ultimately caused the downfall of arcades in my eyes, especially in kid-focused centers like Chuck E. Cheese. As mobile gaming grew, getting that high score-centric quick fix became easier and easier to obtain. Playing Jetpack Joyride on the bus and comparing your score to millions of other players for free kinda beats driving up to the local arcade to stomp on some high scores. I mean, I certainly remember playing Flappy Bird as it swept through the schools and everyone was competing to get those high scores in a rage game. OG mobile games just thrived off of this arcade-like game design. Quick pick up and play high score competitions that you had between your friends and, with the power of the internet, adversaries across the world. Naturally, that meant the predatory aspect of the arcades would worm its way into mobile game design. I mean, paying for energy to keep playing, like how you pop tokens on the continue screen, gotcha pulling for random equipment, and later down the road, full-blown characters. I mean, that's giving Claw Machine. Paying a microtransaction to add digital swag to your favorite games is basically redeeming tickets. All of these arcade tropes trickle down into mobile gaming, and soon after, consoles. So it only makes sense that a generation who grew up with these predatory gimmicks simply wants to go back to where it all started. And to the shock of many, it's crazy how much less predatory these arcades were compared to our modern day counterparts. Only time will tell if the arcade bubble will once again burst, but for now, we're seemingly in good hands, as companies like Sega and Bandai Namco continue to put out unique experiences. Rhythm games are getting steady updates, and even the indie scene is hard at work reviving genres like the shmup with the help of indie distribution. Shoutouts to Exe Arcadia, by the way. And that's gonna do it for my quick deep dive into how the arcades are making a bit of a comeback. I plan on revisiting this topic throughout the years, laser focusing on arcade game design, and maybe potentially in April checking out some arcades overseas to see how they stack up with the ones in my hometown. That's gonna do it from me. I'm your boy Josid signing off. If you enjoyed the video, once again, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It goes a long way in supporting the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.